How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez, Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is July 15, 2019, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com.
You surviving?
Barely, and I'm here.
Did you watch any Evolve?
I have not watched any Evolve yet.
Yeah, I didn't either. That was my goal for today, and I never got to it. Unfortunately, I just had one thing to write after another, and I'm still writing. So I've literally seen none of that, and I wanted to see the whole show by today, but I'll try. Though tomorrow we got G-1, 3 hours of Raw, and the Evolve show's like 3 hours. So I'm not going to be seeing all of it. It's physically impossible.
Well, let's get started with this Extreme Rules show. Brock Lesnar's your champion again.
I know.
I feel like it's 2 years ago.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from. It's interesting because I like to look at like where it's going, and if it's building to Seth Rollins beating Brock Lesnar, it's like we just saw that. I mean, like just saw it. So that's kind of interesting. So now it's like, okay, so it's not Seth Rollins, and in theory, it's not Roman Reigns. Although we can't count anyone out because the way they handled this brand split, it's like it's a non-split at this point. So you can...
Dude, Roman's been on SmackDown like once since he got drafted, so...
He's never on SmackDown. He's on Raw most weeks. Yeah. He's on mostly SmackDown house shows, but he's missed a lot of SmackDown house shows as well. But, yeah, I mean, it could be, and Roman Reigns is always their thought of as being the guy. But we've seen that too. Although we haven't seen it as recently as Rollins. And I kind of thought when they did the split, the idea was Roman Reigns would be the top star in SmackDown and Seth Rollins would be the top star in Raw. And I actually thought that was, kind of a good way to do things. But, and I don't know, is there anyone else that we're missing that this could be leading to Brock against? Drew McIntyre turn? I mean, Daniel Bryan's been moved down too much. AJ Styles is in something with Ricochet. I don't see him at that level that they're pushing. Balor, certainly not. I mean, who is there?
I don't know. I'm baffled they did it.
I mean, I thought that they've been building up to it all along. For weeks they've been building up to it.
Well, they've been building up to a cash-in.
Yeah.
But he didn't necessarily have to. Here's the thing.
He was going to win, though.
I talked about this on another show. The main event of this show built up to this big spot where Baron Corbin hits Becky Lynch with the end of days, and she's dead.
It's interesting they did the man-on-woman violence at that level.
And Seth goes crazy, beats the hell out of Baron, and wins. And Becky's just down there. Like, her man had to go in there and save the day for the woman. And they're all about this women's evolution deal. And when Brock Lesnar's music hit, I thought, Becky's going to, low blow him, and Seth is going to pin him, and they're going to foil the cash-in, and Seth is going to be super over as a result, and Becky's going to be super over as a result.
That's actually...
and it ain't going to hurt Brock one bit.
That's actually a really great scenario. I like that scenario a lot.
I thought for sure... I shouldn't say I thought for sure, because
you never...
I wasn't surprised at all when he just won.
Yeah,
but, I thought this is so easy based on what they did in the match, and you'll get both of them over bigger than they are now, because Brock's he's just, everybody's sick of Brock as the champion. They've conditioned you to that. The problem with Lacey, not Lacey, but Becky Lynch right now, is that she's got no opponents at all. I mean, even if you get her over, you're only going to be you're going to be as over as your program allows you to be. And when you got no challengers, because your top challenger's Lacey Evans, and even tonight, with the no rules situation and all the weapons and everything, it's like this match has been built up, and until the very end, the last maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the match, I just felt the match dragged, and it had every bell and whistle and kendo stick and chairs and broken tables, and the broken table spots were good, and Seth Rollins was great in the match, but even with as great as Seth Rollins was in the match, I wasn't getting into the match at all. It's Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans.
I know.
They can build this up all they want. I saw a version of this last month, and it sucked. I had no interest in seeing it again. They can build it up as big as they want, but... And the other thing is, for whatever reason, and I really don't even know why. Actually, I kind of do know why, because their interviews together are just horrific. Seth and Becky have reverse synergy. You put them together, and they're less over.
They're not as strong as they are
than they were if they weren't together.
I agree.
Like some people you put together and they're better. I mean, it's just not the interview segments they do. It's cringeworthy. It's just so weird because like they are a couple, but you see them on screen and you feel like you're watching two people that don't like each other doing this stuff together. It's bizarre.
No, it's just very scripted and forced. I don't find them cringeworthy at all, but I do agree that they're not.
Dude, they talked about pigeon crap, and Seth is comparing Baron's head to the Liberty Bell crack. That's cringeworthy.
Okay, that's different. Okay, that's the scripting. I'm just
still made the whole segment cringeworthy.
Yeah, I just found it to be a normal bad. I'm so used to these kind of interviews that does nothing for me. It's like listening to WWE announcing. At this point, it's so funny when I listen to announcing for any other show. I'm always like, this is what they should have said, and this is what they should have said, and this is they said this. That's right, and I'm like really into it, like in my own brain, thinking like, what are they missing? What are they not missing? And in WWE, I never think any of it because I just kind of go, like, they're going to miss half the points, they're going to miss half the key transitions, and it's going to be this stilted, fake verbiage. So it's like I don't even. It's just like natural to not even notice about they did a bad interview. It's like, well, I only notice the good interviews because most of the interviews are. And I would not call it cringeworthy. I would just say that it's a WWE interview. But yeah, them together is weak. And then the other problem is that she's got no contenders. They got to get somebody ready for her. And I don't even know who it would be. It's not like that there's somebody sitting in the back. It's like, what, we're going to go with Alexa Bliss next? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like we've just seen... Alexa Bliss is a great talker, without a doubt, but it's like Becky, she's not a world championship contender for Becky Lynch when your women's division is supposed to be like at a really high level. And Becky Lynch was, won the main event at WrestleMania. And, I'll tell you what, I mean, if right now is any indication, I mean, I'm not saying that a lot, because I know a lot of people did see this, but I know a lot of people who didn't, is just how valuable Ronda Rousey was to that women's division, because when she left, it went straight down the tubes. Becky Lynch was super, super over, and, the idea was her and Charlotte Flair to be kept apart for the most part, which they weren't, and now they are. But it's like, without Charlotte Flair, what has Becky got? She got Lacey Evans, who God bless her. I mean, when I'm watching, like, Baron Corbin is okay. He's not bad, but he's not a main event. He's not the main event guy. And Lacey Evans, certainly is very unique looking, and she carries herself like she's somebody. And I totally get why they think that they've got something in her, and I totally get why they want to push her. But, it's like we said from the start, she needed 18 more months in developmental, and maybe more. And then they could have brought her up and done all this stuff with her, and she'd have been a whole hell of a lot more ready. Instead, they brought her up, put her right in that main event spot. She's clearly not ready for it. And as much as she can kind of do her unique promos and all that, once the match starts, it's at best, it's a struggle for Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch isn't that great to be able to work with somebody like Lacey Evans and get it to that level at this point. In 18 months, could it happen? Yeah, probably. But that's a different issue. So,
all right, well, take us through this pre-show. Let's go over this show.
All right. It opened with Shinsuke Nakamura and Finn Balor for the Intercontinental Championship. And they went 7.5 minutes, of which, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes or so was a commercial. But they do the screen and screen. But during the commercial, they didn't do much. This match was like okay, the only way I think you could see a worse Shinsuke Nakamura Finn Balor match would be if they were like legitimately not trying, or if they like one or both were just going like, fuck this, I don't care. And neither of them had that. But it was, the crowd was, I mean, they saw them as stars, but it had no time to build. And it was nothing compared to their television match. I mean, it was a above average match, but just above average. And Finn Balor went for the coup de grace and missed. And Nakamura hit him with a Kinshasa to the back, and then another Kinshasa, 1, 2, 3, won the championship. I mean, it felt like, it just, at the time, it felt like they weren't going to the finish. And then he just hits like he does the one in the back, and I go, okay. He's not going to pin him with the one in the back because this is WWE, and you always know what the pinning move is, and it's the one to the front. And New Japan's the same way. Then he does the one to the front. It's like, he's actually going to pin him right now. And the crowd's not ready for it. And so there was that.
Dave,
Gulak, yes.
This is the third straight person whose partner went home and they got the title.
Oh. Well, like I said, they felt they had to do something with Nakamura.
Sasha left. Bayley got the belt.
Okay, but Bayley was
Harper
always...
left. Rowan got the belt. Okay. Rusev left. Nakamura got the belt. That's 3 in a row.
That's interesting. Okay, now, Bayley was always going to get the belt. What was the second one? Rowan, obviously, that was all plans changing because, Daniel Bryan was going to be a singles guy. And then he was out. And then when he came back, his spot was taken, so they put him with Rowan. I mean, Rowan was going to be with him, but they weren't going to be a tag team. And, tag team champions, they were supposed to be singles. So so it's interesting. Yeah, and Nakamura, Rusev went home, and they needed something to do with them, and Nakamura and Balor, you put it on paper and you go like, this is going to be a great feud. And I thought their TV match as a first match for a television match, I thought was good. I thought it was a nice match to build up a pay-per-view match that was way worse than their television match. So there you go. Then Drew Gulak and Tony Nese for the Cruiserweight Championship. And Drew Gulak won. Drew Gulak had a decent amount of support because he's from Philadelphia. So you had your hardcore fans who know Drew Gulak from the Indies and who know he's from Philadelphia, who are well behind him, even though he's a heel. And then, but it's the 205 Live match, so it's kind of like, when you have a big crowd, and they had a nice crowd tonight. It wasn't sold out. Like they said they sold out. They were not sold out, but it was a nice crowd. So-so reaction, very good wrestling. And Drew Gulak won with 2 power bombs and the Cyclone Crash, which is kind of like a neck breaker. So, okay match. Also a little better than average, but not much. Not nearly like what you'd expect from these two. A lot because they didn't have time, and a lot because the Cruiserweight match on the pay-per-view always seems to not get over, or most of the time, because on the last show it actually did.
So the opener for the main show, Shane McMahon, Drew McIntyre versus The Undertaker, Roman Reigns, in a no-holds-barred match, they said. I'll get the negative out of the way first because it drove me crazy up and down the show. No holds barred, no DQ, Geek standing on the apron waiting for a tag. It's infuriating. Happened in this match, happened in the main event. I don't want a defense of it. It's stupid. It's just dumb. Okay, well, here's the deal.
I guess the rule is that you have to have legal men in the ring, but I know what you're saying.
So what's going to happen? They're going to get DQ'd?
Yeah, if there's no DQ.
And not only that, they got in the ring and did 4-way stuff later. So there's always just a period of about 5 minutes where everybody stands on the apron looking stupid, and then it just breaks down into a tornado match. So this is the way they book matches. It drives me out of my mind.
Yeah, realistically, because of the way they do the no DQ rules and things like that, and then I can't even keep track like which matches don't allow rope breaks, because before, even in a no DQ match, even though in theory, I guess since it's no DQ, they can't DQ you for a rope break, but rope breaks counted, and the referee was supposed to break them on the ropes. Now it's like, well, rope breaks don't count, but when the guy gets to the ropes, they end up breaking anyway, even though it's not an ordered break. It's like that's a setup for the guy kind of break. They kind of do the break that way. So, because people are conditioned to, react like that. So it's just the way they do things. And yeah, I guess if you're going to say it's a no DQ, it kind of inherently should be a tornado match, but it's not. So there you go. I mean, as far as the match went, this match was way better than I expected. I actually liked the match a lot.
The fans were super into this match. The Undertaker looked good in this match.
He looked good.
And he did all of his spots. The place went crazy for it. Shane got to do his crazy stuff. The elbow off the post through a table.
That table was so far away. He's going to kill himself one day.
He is. I mean,
he is for sure.
This is like weight cutting in UFC. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
It is.
He's purple in these matches. He's sweating profusely. He's throwing himself off the post through tables. Like, it's not going to end well. But he's going to keep doing it. And he did all these spots here. And for a while, it was a 3-on-2 match because the Drifter ran down and broke the guitar over Undertaker's back.
I got to say, when he goes off the top rope like that, the one move, it really is amazing at his age that he flies that far. But my God, it's like he's that age, and yeah, it's like your body's not meant to be doing that. Even the idea that, well, he's only doing it on very rare occasions, and these guys are taking the pounding every night. It's like he is gonna hurt himself soon. Without, I mean, he already has, but they kept that quiet. But he will, he's crazy. I mean, and I guess it makes up for the, his lack of skill in the ring. Although he did not look. There were points in the match where I thought he looked bad, but for the most part, I didn't think.
Well, he didn't have to do a wrestling match. It was mostly like gathering plunder, jumping off something, gathering plunder. There was actually this really funny spot where he hits the coast to coast on the Undertaker, drives the can into his face, and he drags him to the middle, and Undertaker does a zombie sit-up. And he's going to do the sit-up, look at Shane, and grab his neck. But Shane's too far away, so Shane has to scoot towards him as the Undertaker's sitting up. It was hilarious. And he grabbed him.
That was funny.
And went for the tombstone, and Shane didn't go up. So Undertaker glared at him, tried again, and got it on the second try, got the pin. Yes, this was much better than one would expect if you ignore the stupidity.
Yeah, very well put together as far as certain timing of moves and things like that. As Undertaker was pretty much done, and then McIntyre was about to finish him with the Claymore kick, and Reigns showed up out of nowhere and speared McIntyre. And, McIntyre had laid both of them out with their Claymore kick. I mean, they definitely pushed McIntyre to look very strong here. One thing is, during the commentary, of course, they claimed Undertaker 6'10", and McIntyre, in the same match, they claimed was 6'5". So then they stand next to each other, and they're pretty much the same height. I think Undertaker might have him by an inch.
Undertaker was very slightly taller.
Yeah, not 5 inches.
But not 5 inches, no.
Not even maybe an inch tops, not 2 inches. So it's just kind of weird because I'm watching it and I'm just like, no, don't put them together after what you said because it's going to expose just how ridiculous it is that you said. But they should, and there's no reason to announce Undertaker at 6'10" because, he's in there with a guy who's the same size as him, and you're not going to say the other guy's 6'9.5". So it's kind of like just don't say it. If he's like in there with guys that are all 6 feet tall, you can kind of bluff it. I mean, it's still silly, but when you got in this situation, I just thought it was like hilarious. But Drew looked good. They made him look strong. I don't know if they're building Undertaker for they're building Undertaker for SummerSlam, but I mean Drew looks the most likely because Shane's working with Owens. I think we can see that.
Seth and Becky interview. This was the one where Seth talked about cracking Baron's head like the Liberty Bell, and Becky saying Lacey was going to end up like a statue covered in pigeon crap. Revival versus Usos for the tag team titles. For whatever reason, about 5 minutes into this match, and the crowd was actually somewhat into it at the beginning, but about 5 minutes in, they decided, we're over this. And this crowd died. And they're in there working their asses off, and they actually had a pretty good tag team match, but nobody cared. And
I like the match. I think these guys work very well together.
They are. They had a great, I wouldn't say great, they had a very good tag team match.
They had a very good match, though, yeah.
But zero heat. All four guys ended up in separate corners, and the Usos did the super kick party, went for another dive, Dawson broke it up, and then out of nowhere, they hit the Shatter Machine, got the pin, retained the titles, and that's the story.
Yeah. Good, two good teams in a good match. Yeah.
We have Aleister Black and Cesaro, another largely dead crowd, although another match where they worked their asses off. I
will say that, I mean, it was not as long as a G1 match, but it was the quality of I don't want to say like a top end G1 match, but it felt like it would belong like this. And this would be the only match I would say that above on the entire card. I mean, it just felt like they're parts of the Daniel Bryan match, actually.
AJ Ricochet was very good.
Yeah, but it wasn't this was more like stiff and this was like a fight. AJ Ricochet was like a WWE wrestling match with two guys who were really good. It's a big difference. These guys were not working a WWE match. These guys were trying to work a very different match and get over by, shocking the people into some really stiff strikes and things like that. And I mean, I can't say it didn't work that well, which isn't to say that the style doesn't work. It's just to say that,
this is an audience that is expecting
they want to see stars. It's
something different.
No, you're right. But I think that they would have accepted this if the guys were bigger stars. In fact, I think they would have loved it if the guys were bigger stars. But, Black has just done those interviews. He's not quite ready. I know that, they have, at least some people there have big plans for him. And Cesaro was the opponent. Cesaro was there so Black could do a unique, different match. And Cesaro was a great opponent. For these two guys to get even the reaction that they got, I thought was very, very good. But, it's just a matter of time. I mean, the WWE audience, and a lot of audiences, but WWE more than most, they react more to star power, very much more than to, what you're doing in the match itself and the high quality of a match or something like that. So these guys did. I mean, I thought what they did was great, but it was still, like you said, the crowd was not that great into it. Some people in the crowd were very into it, but as a whole, no.
Well, they react to star power, but they also have been conditioned to react only to the big high spots at the end. That's the whole thing. AJ is a big star.
They don't know these guys' moves. Cesaro, they know one or two.
They know some of this stuff, but I mean, my point is, in the AJ Ricochet match, I mean, they were into Ricochet's comeback. They didn't care one bit about the heat. It didn't matter how big stars they were. They've been conditioned that stuff doesn't matter. And what matters is all the big moves at the end so they can chant, "This is awesome," which is a high spot now from the crowd. Like in this match, this was a very good match, but the fans were reacting to it like they didn't care about it. But then at the end, because it's what you do, they started a "This is awesome" chant. Well, it's if it was awesome, you should have been getting into the match earlier here tonight. This was just their spot. They did a couple of they did a sharpshooter spot, and there was a V trigger.
Aleister Black did
a scissor takedown into a knee bar. Cesaro turned into a sharpshooter, and this got a "This is awesome" chant.
No, he does the. There was a crossface, and then Black. What did he do? The elbows to the thigh, trying to break up the crossface, which I thought was really cool and different. And then Black hit another knee, and then they did the "This is awesome" chant, and then they went right to the finish from there.
Striking battle. Aleister absolutely killed him with a Black Mass.
Oh yeah,
and got the pin.
Yeah.
If you want to see two guys beat the hell out of each other, this is the match for you.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought this was it was actually one of my favorite matches on the show. The next match was not.
Truth is looking for Drake Maverick, runs into Alexa and Nikki, wants to know if they've seen Hornswoggle. Try to get him into the women's restroom. He leaves with Carmella. Alexa has a gift for Nikki, a Twisted Bliss coffee t-shirt, plugging her business. And they hug. Street Profits show up. They do their thing. Nikki tells them to shut up. Says her and Alexa would do anything for each other, and they'll prove it tonight. So they have the match. It is Bayley versus Nikki and Alexa for the women's title. For a while, the story was that Nikki deserved a title match. She had beaten Bayley. She had beaten some other women. And then, out of nowhere, they just had Bayley beat her. And then, for like a couple of shows, Corey Graves keeps mentioning that, oh, Bayley's friend left her high and dry. Bayley's friend bailed on her. Bayley's friend this.
That's
Sasha.
Yeah, right.
Yet everybody thinking it was going to be Sasha. So what happens? They go out there. They
Sasha.
do a match. Bayley beats both women and wins clean. That's what happened after all that.
Yeah.
I was gobsmacked.
I thought that could happen, and that they would do a finish where they I thought they were going to do a finish where Bliss screws up, Cross gets pinned, and then but it's Bliss's fault, and then Bliss blames her for losing, and then that's the split up. And I don't even think they did that.
No, they didn't do that at all. They both wrestled, and finally
Bayley
Alexa
just beat her with an elbow.
Yeah, Bayley got the knees up. Alexa fell outside. Bayley laid out Nikki, hit the flying elbow, and just pinned her. That was the end.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see where it's going tomorrow. Alexa Bliss, this is her first match back. She lost a lot of weight. She said that this was the sickest that she's ever been in her entire life the last 2 weeks, which was she had a really bad sinus infection. And, I just noticed she was smaller. I mean, I didn't really, she didn't look out of shape at all. I mean, she looked great, but was lost mass. And, it wasn't like she was moving badly or anything. Like when I was watching, it's like, I wouldn't say from what she did that she was, lesser than before. If anything, I thought she did more than usual. So I don't think the thing was physically holding her back at this stage. And the reason that they did the handicap match was because they were afraid of that, because they thought she wouldn't be able to do a singles match. She seemed okay, as far as that went. But I think maybe this may be the weakest thing on the show.
We had Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley last man standing. And I liked this match. I would have liked it a lot more if it were probably at least 5 minutes shorter. They went 17 minutes, and most of it was brawling. They brawled in the crowd. They brawled up to the merchandise stand. There was a spot where Braun gave him a vertical suplex into the wall.
Was that a real merchandise stand? It looked really fake to me. I didn't see a lot of merchandise there.
Well, no. Maybe it was all sold out, you see.
Could have been.
Fought back to ringside. Lashley speared him through the barricade, tipped the announce table over on top of him. Strowman fought his way free. They had a deal where Lashley tried to dive off the barricade, and Strowman threw him over the international announcer's table in the crowd. And they brawled and brawled and brawled and brawled and brawled and brawled. And finally they got up on the one of the, I don't even know what you'd call it. I guess kind of a balcony.
Well, it's the 100 section.
The 100 section.
Yeah.
And there's like a black hole. You can't see a thing. And Braun gives him a power slam off the balcony into the darkness.
So they both go through the
They fall into this hole.
They fall into this. Well, they go through the floor, the setup, whatever, gimmick spot. They go through. So they're both like in this black hole of nowhere. And Braun fights his way out of the black hole and wins.
It was actually better than that. They're in a black hole. You can't see anything. And so the ref runs around to start counting or whatever. And all of a sudden, Braun smashes through the wall like a movie monster. And he's on his feet. And, for all we know, Lashley was on his feet, but he was in the black hole, so we couldn't see him. And so they just announced that he had lost. And that was the end of that. So,
yeah, I think for these two guys, that was a really good match. They definitely need to stop with the frickin' Braun Strowman running spots. It's getting worse every time. And they build so much around it, because it's like that's their big thing of him running around the ring. And, it's like he's not running like when he first started doing the spots and they were so impressive because he could run real fast at his size. But now, he's running so slow and so upright because whatever it is his knees shot or whatever the problem is. I'm sure it is the knees, from what I understand. And it's like, okay, so he can't do this stuff and it doesn't look good, so let's have him do other stuff. It's like, but this is his repertoire. It's like, I need to change the repertoire a little bit. Now, as far as, I thought the match was real entertaining. I thought they had some really cool setup spots, really well laid out. Whoever produced this match, I thought did a hell of a job. So, very good match.
So then we had the announcement, Raw Reunion is next week. So you'll get a chance to see Eric Bischoff and Heyman, and I'm sure Hornswoggle.
Everyone in the world.
And everybody else.
I don't know if this is a real number, but I was told by someone in the company, I gave a bunch of names asking if they were going to be there, and everyone I asked about, it was a yes. And then they said, there's 35 more just like it. So this, I thought that this was, this is the Monday before they announced the stock thing, so I figure, that they can go in there and go, we did, 'cause Steve Austin's going to be back, and he's the one guy who hasn't been around in a long, long time. And, with all these guys, well, I mean, I guess some of the other ones haven't been, but they, on their own, you got Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, Rock. I mean, not Rock. Rock actually is the one who I haven't heard was going to be on the show. But all these guys back, and these shows usually do a much bigger than usual rating. So they could go in there and go, well, we've turned the corner and we figured it out. And Monday's rating, we did 3 million viewers. And, that's what so we're up from last year now, but in fact, that was not the reason. This was, USA has, is very disappointed with the numbers. And they, I think we talked about this months ago. They made a whole bunch of suggestions, and one of them was the thing that ended up being the 24/7. And one of them was Raw Reunion show, bring back all, they did it. They asked for other people, a lot of other people also for suggestions. I don't know what other people's suggestions were. This was not one of mine, to say the least. But I mean, as far as I'm sure it will do a good number. But this is what I will say: if you're going to do the show, and you're, I hope that they have one hell of an angle with the current guys. So they use the larger because this will probably be one of the larger audiences they have all year, maybe the largest. And if that's the case, because of Hogan and Austin, if this is the case, and it is, and Ric Flair too, and many others, but if this is going to be the one of the larger audiences of the year, and it's got nothing to do with anything that's going to build the future, because going back to the past is not going to build the future whatsoever. In fact, it's in a sense counterproductive. So just make sure that there's some really great angle, hopefully, on that show that, and I'm not holding my breath on that one, because whenever I think that, they never, I would say never, but they almost never deliver.
We had Bryan and Rowan versus New Day Heavy Machinery for the tag team titles. Yes, another three-way, no DQ, dude standing on the apron waiting for a tag. And
I really liked this match.
It broke down into a six-way, and then it was a lot of fun. They had Otis teasing a big dive, which, by the way, if he can do a big dive, he should do it at WrestleMania and no other time. Instead, he jumped up on the apron and leaped off on everybody. Tucker did a dive off the post onto the pile. Rowan tried a double claw on Heavy Machinery, but they cut him off.
They blocked him from doing it, yeah.
Yep, we got a stacked up superplex. Big E hit a superplex on Rowan, and then Bryan hit a diving headbutt on E. Put him in the label lock. Big E got the ropes, but there are no DQs, so he had to pull himself out of the ring. And then Bryan started slapping him around, so Big E grabbed him, turned him inside out with a lariat. Bryan tried the moonsault. Big E caught him in midair. They hit the midnight hour, got the pin. So, New Day, the new tag team champions, which means all three of them have belts right now. And sadly, Otis did not win the titles. I was very disappointed by that.
You didn't think he would.
It was a fun match.
Really good match. Really good match. I thought Daniel Bryan every time he was in, it was really top notch. And Xavier Woods and Daniel Bryan, really good opening spot where they just did a bunch of lucha libre kind of high spots back and forth. And but yeah, I thought this was better than the Revival Usos match. It was good.
Heyman came out, said he's Philadelphia's Extreme. He'll be damned if he doesn't leave Philadelphia tonight making history. Brock Lesnar will cash in tonight on either the WWE or Universal Champion. Am I telling the truth, he asks, or am I Paul Heyman? Turns out, I guess he's not Paul Heyman, because he was telling the truth. Rick
well, on these things, it's like when he's used the term, this is not a prediction, it's a spoiler, it's always true. And he's brought up that it's always true, so now, when I say it, maybe I'm just saying it to mess with those guys. But, in fact, it was still true.
Next up, we had the Ricochet AJ Styles match, and they had a good match. Ricochet did all his high spots early, looked really good. AJ cut him off. Again, fans didn't care one bit during the heat, just sat there dead silent. Finally, Ricochet makes a big comeback. They got into that. He did a dive off the post on Anderson and Gallows, Quebrada, Northern Lights into a vertical suplex. And then, for some reason, I don't understand, AJ cut him off again. The crowd died. And they pretty much stayed dead from there. And then Ricochet hit a shooting star. AJ had his foot under the ropes. Anderson interfered, fell into the ring. This was not a DQ.
Anderson told the ref about the foot. And the ref got distracted by Anderson, and then Gallows
crotch Ricochet, and AJ hit him with a jumping reverse Styles Clash off the middle rope for the pin. I was so glad nobody died. That looked like it was a disaster waiting to happen, but it got pulled off perfectly. And AJ's the champion.
Yeah, but it keeps the feud going, because there was interference from Gallows and Anderson, so program's going to still go, and Ricochet's going to still work with AJ. They still, hopefully they'll get, I thought that this, because the stuff they've done on TV has always been so short, I thought this was going to be that great match, and it was good, but it still wasn't that great match.
We had the Kevin Owens-Dolph Ziggler match. They both come out, the bell rings, Ziggler slaps him, Owen gives him a stunner, 1, 2, 3. Match is over.
Yep.
And
the show was running long. I wasn't ready for it. That match would have died, seriously.
Well, they shouldn't have added it this morning then.
Yeah. Okay, so the story on those matches is, so because remember I said during the week that no new matches were added?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened was, now I know what to ask, okay? I asked, are there any new matches? This was on Wednesday. Are there any new matches that are going to be added for Sunday? And the answer was, well, we're going to make the decision on Wednesday night. So on Thursday I asked, are there any new matches added? It's no. So what happened was, these two matches, they had a 12-match lineup already. They just hadn't announced them. So these matches were already on the books. I just didn't know them. So it wasn't like they were added on Wednesday. Nothing was added on Wednesday. This was Dolph Ziggler and Owens and Nakamura and Balor were programmed for the show for weeks. They just never got around to announcing them. Now, so that's the story on the whole thing. It wasn't like a last-minute plan change or anything like that. It's just a miscommunication. So now I know to ask, are there any new matches that have not been announced, but that are already on the books? So there you go.
All right, so afterwards he got a promo and basically said he showed up tonight expecting to be suspended or fired, which would have happened probably had it not been for The Undertaker. Said he spoke for himself, everybody in the locker room, everybody in the audience, everybody at home. Shane McMahon could kiss his ass and go to hell. We had Joe and Kofi Kingston. Story of this match was Kofi flipped him off on TV, so Joe decided he was going to break his middle finger. And he worked over the finger, smashed it, stomped it, mangled it, smashed it between the ring steps. Kofi still flipped him off anyway, made a 9-finger comeback. Joe hit the power slam, and we got a light "We want Lesnar, no we don't" chant.
And they went to the finish right at that moment.
As they're chanting, Kofi just kicked him and pinned him. And it was a I would say
Underwhelming.
slightly better than average SmackDown TV match. Maybe average.
I would say slightly better than average television match, and absolutely not a pay-per-view World Championship match by any means. And part of it was the nature of how the match was laid out and the time they were allotted, that it wasn't going to be that match. But it's like ever since Kofi won the championship, I mean, they push him really strong, but he is yet to have that great match. I mean, like with Ziggler, the whole thing with Dolph Ziggler telling everyone he's Shawn Michaels and then never delivering on it, even though he's very good. And then with this one with Joe, who's a completely different animal, and Joe can have good matches for sure, but this was just, Joe pretty much took the whole match and then got kicked in the head and then got pinned. And no build, no big, anything like that. And at this point, the show was running very, very long, and really the crowd was kind of dead at this point. Really, I think that they were dead ever since the Daniel Bryan match. The rest of the show, they were okay for the Ricochet match, not as big as they should have been. And then in this match, not that strong. And at spots in the mixed tag, they were strong, the real key spots. But for the match as a whole, it just felt like they were tired.
And then Seth and Becky versus Corbin and Lacey. This match was just mind-boggling. Extreme Rules, anything goes. First, everyone's standing on the apron. I'm infuriated. Then they tell us men can only wrestle men, women can only wrestle women. Which we, by the way, find out later is just bullshit, because Corbin laid out Becky with the end of days at one point, and there were zero consequences. There was a spot where Lacey...
He broke the
code.
He broke the code, the secret code.
Yeah, but this is supposed to be equality in a women's evolution, and Lacey is beating on Seth Rollins, and nobody cares. But Baron lays out Becky, and he's like public enemy number one.
Well, that's just how it's going to be. That they're trying to get heat on Baron Corbin, and the way to get heat is to lay out Lacey. Lay out Becky Lynch because she's the big favorite.
Well, they also had a spot where Becky and Seth gave both of them a double suplex on the ramp, where Seth basically gave Lacey Evans a suplex onto the ramp. Nobody mentioned that. So they brawled all over, and Lacey did a couple things that looked good. She had a nice moonsault off the top, and missed the women's right. Becky put her in the disarmor, hit a DDT, tags in Seth. Seth is not allowed to even cover Lacey Evans here in this match, so he's just standing there all baffled. And Seth and Becky got a table. They both did a dive and put the heels through the table. And finally they get in the ring, and Seth is outside, and Corbin grabs Becky, and he hits the end of days, and the crowd's shocked, and the announcers are screaming. And Rollins is furious, and he runs wild, beats the shit out of Corbin with kendo sticks and chair shots, curb stomp, hits a second one. Lacey backs off and just leaves, and he hits a third curb stomp and gets the pin, and that was it. That was that part of the match.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brock's music hits, and Brock comes down to the ring, and they announce the cash-in, and he grabs Seth, and he gives him a German, and then he F5s him, and he wins the title.
Okay, so actually, Brock runs in, he does 2 German suplexes, then they ask for the cash-in. Then they do the cash-in, and then the first thing he does is F5, 16 seconds, 1, 2, 3. He sort of picks him up, smiles. I thought, not this easy, but yes.
Not only that, it wasn't like Seth got beaten down. Seth's girlfriend got laid out, and he gets his burst of adrenaline. He absolutely kills Baron Corbin.
Yeah,
and he's standing tall. He feels great. He's smiling. The music hits. He's 100%. Brock gives him 2 Germans, F5s him, and he's dead.
Yep. I know. What can I say? That's what they did. When he got him on the shoulders for the F5, I thought for sure Seth's getting out of it. Then when he hit it, I go, okay, this is going to be the pin for sure. Just because it's like, if it was Braun Strowman, he might kick out. But it's Seth Rollins, he's not going to kick out. And he didn't. And there you go. I mean, when Brock came out, I thought for sure they were changing the title. They built it up too much to not do it. Plus, it's Brock. It's like, Vince is paying Brock way too much, because one of the things is when you are the guy with the exception of Cena, but Cena was done in a very unique way. But if you're a guy who has that briefcase, and then you screw up like Baron Corbin did the 1 year, or Sandow, or whatever, you're pretty much like a big-time loser. And they will never book. They're paying Brock way too much to be a big-time loser. So I knew that when he cashed in, he was going to win. So he did. And I think it would have been interesting for him to cash in on Kingston and be on SmackDown, given that, SmackDown's the one on Fox. But for whatever reason, it's like he's. When was the last time Brock was ever on SmackDown?
It's been a long time.
Well, I think he may have done one. I think he did one. But
let me repeat that. Let me just say it's very rare.
Like one, I think like one in maybe 13 years or 12 years, something like that. Since 2004, that's 15 years.
August 2, 2016, he was there.
Right. I think there was one show in the last 15 years, maybe two.
All right, a couple of news notes here. The G-1 later tonight. The block matches. This by the time most of you hear this is going to be over, but Toru Yano, Shingo Takagi, Juice Robinson.
Shingo's got to win that one. He's got to.
Juice Robinson and Hiroki Goto.
Juice Robinson, Hiroki Goto. I wonder what they'll do on this one. I'm not sure. I wouldn't go either way. I feel Goto.
Jeff Cobb, John Moxley. Ishii, Jay White.
Probably Jay.
And Naito and Taichi.
I hope Naito wins. He lost the last one, so I think he should win this one. So Cobb and Moxley is an interesting one because it's a very different match for Moxley than he's had so far. And Ishii and Jay is interesting because Ishii's all about having incredible matches, and Jay is all about playing a character. And some don't like that, but that's what he does. And Ishii's just, he's just out there in a balls-out match. And it's not what Jay does, so that's going to be very interesting. But the fact is that Ishii rarely ever disappoints. So, and Jay's got a lot of talent. So it's not as big. I can't imagine it being as big as today's show. Today's show was ridiculous, but I don't expect that there will be any bad G1 shows. Maybe there will be down the line, but I'm looking at this lineup thinking there probably aren't going to be any.
All right, so the update on Will Ospreay, according to the New Japan US website, Will Ospreay has suffered a neck injury.
Okay, he got a stinger in his match with Sonata. He's in a lot of pain. And as far as he's not wrestling on the show today, and as far as Thursday, it's up in the air. I think it depends on how much pain he is or isn't in. But stingers are. It's like Stinger. He may be okay right away. He may be fucked for this G1, which would be a shame because obviously he was just absolutely tearing it up. But that's what the story is.
It's our story on Chris Charlton.
Okay, so Chris Charlton, if you've been watching the shows, he's been much quieter than usual. I believe... Okay, New Japan is very high on Chris Charlton. This was not a New Japan decision. I believe it was a TV Asahi decision. TV Asahi owns 50% of New Japan World. I don't know why. If I'm going to speculate on this, a TV company, Chris Charlton is not your traditional announcer, what they look for in an announcer. He doesn't have the look of an announcer. He does not have the voice of an announcer. He's absolutely brilliant, and he adds to the show a lot, and him holding back and not being able to say anything. He's only there for the translations, although he does say a few extra things too, but it's pretty much the idea is now that it's Kevin Kelly and Rocky Romero are the announcers, and Chris Charlton is the translator, as opposed to being the third announcer. I think that that's not a good idea, but like I said, this was not a New Japan decision. This was a decision from outside New Japan. The only people that would be TV Asahi, and that is the way I heard the story.
Alrighty, we also have a couple of injuries from the AEW show last night. Britt Baker suffered a concussion. I guess we don't know the severity yet.
I heard pretty bad. I heard significant concussion. I think, and in her case, when she crawled to go in the wrong corner, I think that may have, after taking that kick and everything, and she was hurting a lot she shook it off, came back at the end, did her stuff, didn't screw up any moves at that point or anything like that. But, it's so hard because you're so used to matches being like they are. You're not used to them taking people out. The way they do that is CMLL. And if somebody's even the slightest bit of risk of anything like that, they'll stretch them out and get them to the back and get them to get medical attention. I think that we should be at least as progressive as a company that's still 40 years in the past. But it's hard because the wrestlers don't want to do it. Nobody wants to take that. The fans aren't going to be happy no matter if it's the right thing or not. But again, if you have a concussion and you go in there and continue to do stuff, your odds for that second concussion are pretty high, and you shouldn't be messing with that.
And MJF
elbow injury. I don't know. They announced there was a show that he was supposed to do today that he did not do. And the company that he was working with announced that he had a severe elbow injury and couldn't do it. I was told that he dinged his elbow, so that doesn't sound as severe. I don't remember the spot where it happened, but it's enough that he couldn't wrestle today. Whether that means, what that means, I don't know. It could be anything from something that'll be fine from in a week, or something that he's going to need surgery for, and it's going to take a long time, and I don't know which it is at this point.
All right, we're going to do the mailbag here in a second, but the meet and greet for the Copper Box Show London. You wanted to talk about this.
Okay, somebody on Twitter asked me about this, and will there be a meet and greet? The answer is yes, there will be a meet and greet in England. I don't know any other details. Talent hasn't been announced for the show or anything like that, but it will exist, yes.
Which show is this?
August 31st, New Japan Copper Box Arena show. The same day as All In or All Out and WWE UK. Man, what a day! Another one of those weekends. I don't think I'm ever going to have a social life again.
All right, this person here says, Harold May's stated goal when he joined New Japan was to expand the company internationally and reach $100 million in turnover within 3 years. How far do you think he is from achieving these goals?
100 millions, I think they're pretty far. They need a big-time U.S. television deal. And I don't think that I don't see anyone paying big money for New Japan Pro Wrestling in the U.S. market just yet. I'm not saying that it can never happen, but, that's just not the mentality of people. They did pay for WWE, but, I don't know what else you can do. They're selling out their arenas now. Their merchandise business per head is super high. And they're not even at 50 million. So I don't know how in the primarily Japanese marketplace that you're going to be able to do 100 million. Nobody ever has. But I think that he was probably looking at expansion of merchandise and television money, and that thus far, as far as I could tell, the increases in business are because more people are buying tickets and buying merchandise, not outside forces. But again, what kind of outside forces can they get? But 100 million, it's like, I hope we can do it. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility if they get hot and sell a ton of merchandise, but it looks very difficult to be able to do that.
Bert says, do you foresee every one of Moxley's G1 matches containing the inclusion of weapons or outside wrestling? It was cool for his debut against Juice, but I was disappointed his G1 debut had the same elements. I would like to see more of his in-ring work.
He was against Taichi. You kind of take the good with the bad with Taichi. Hopefully that's going to change on today's show. We shall see.
This person wants to know why the ring announcer speaks English during the countouts and not Japanese.
It's just a matter of tradition as far as the pro wrestling. I mean, English means 1, 2, 3, 19, 20, 17, 18, 19. They get all excited. They do a really good job with that. But it's because pro wrestling came from America, so those terms, like the numbers of the counting terms, are in English. It's when we had judo when I was in college. We did all our counting in Japanese. Ishini-san. That's how I learned Japanese counting, up to 10. I can't go higher because that's the number that we went up to. But, yeah, because judo came from Japan. So that's the reason that they do that.
All right, this person here says, how are the teams and corner teams of UFC fighters paid? Is there a financial incentive for them to let their fighter fight, even if they aren't healthy enough to?
I mean, it's based on the deal with the fighter. So usually it's a percentage. Yes, it's to their event. It's definitely to the corner's advantage. I mean, not everyone. Everyone's got a separate deal. But I mean, in theory, if you're being paid based on winning or losing, you're gonna, try to figure out ways to get the guy not to lose the fight, which in some cases you just can't do.
This person here wants to know, anything new with Marty Scurll? Do you expect him to join AEW when his contract is up?
It's possible. It's possible WWE. I was under the impression that WWE was the more likely of the two, but that AEW is certainly not a dead situation, nor is Ring of Honor for that matter. So his contract's up later in the year, and he's going to sit there, and everyone's going to make their offer, and there'll probably be some type of Japan. I don't know. There's probably some type of he could do England anyway, but yep.
This person here says, do you have a prediction on who will last longer, Bischoff or Heyman? And more specifically, how long will each last?
No
Who
idea.
knows how long, but
I have no idea. I mean,
I would suspect Heyman's going to last longer. He's been there. He's been through this.
Yeah.
Eric Bischoff is moving from...
Wyoming,
Where
right?
was he? Wyoming? Yeah.
Cody, Wyoming, I think?
Yeah.
Or maybe Arizona? I'm not sure. Maybe he's got two places. I don't know. I think he was living in Wyoming. But, yeah. I mean, Eric's not going to do anything to lose the job, and they don't fire anybody. So they may both be there for a lot. Well, I can't even imagine, like I know they fired Heyman or he quit. I guess he technically quit, back, what was it, 06 or whatever it was, when a little after 06, but maybe it was the end of 06. But times are completely different now. They're not firing Paul Heyman and then having him, be creative on the AEW show. That's just, they'll never let that happen, and they'll pay him money to keep it from happening.
All right, this person here says, is the loser of Gargano Cole, if they do that at NXT next, going to come up to the main roster?
No idea. It's certainly viable, but I haven't been told that explicitly.
Let's see. This person here says, I was watching the replay of Fight for the Fallen. Noticed the video and audio quality were much better than the live feed. Made the commentary much easier to follow. Is this due to the number of people streaming live at the same time? Do we have any numbers?
I have no numbers right now. I'll have them by Wednesday, but I don't know anything now.
Is the current New Japan roster better than WCW in 1997 or All Japan in 1994?
I think it's probably got more depth than All Japan in 1984.
If you're talking like
numbers of guys,
let's forget the matches they're allowed to do. But if you're talking like the sheer number of talented people signed to a company, it's WWE.
Well, today,
yeah, if you consider everybody in developmental and from Keith Lee to Riddle all the way up to the main roster, it's WWE today.
It's WWE because because the thing with WCW had more people under contract, but a lot of them weren't as good. Like in WWE, there's very few guys who aren't good. Some of the NXT guys aren't good, but for the most part, everyone is good. And you can't say that about like WCW back then. But I mean, as far as top talent, ability in the ring, as far as production in the ring, having great matches, neither. I don't think people here can match New Japan. No.
This person here says, does Red Shoe speak the best English of the New Japan referees, or is there another reason he always seems to be the ref for the Americans?
He's just a senior ref, and does he speak like how much English? I know he speaks English. You know, I mean, as far as how fluently compared to other people, I couldn't answer that.
Oh boy, here we go. I was attending Fight for the Fallen. It was a decent experience all around, excluding some issues. A lot of spectators couldn't see the ring. Can you elaborate on why AEW insists on not showing the live feed on the screens in the arenas? Dude, welcome to WWE. Yeah. I couldn't see a thing at that show in Tacoma.
I have no idea why you don't have, screens. I know, like at UFCs and Strikeforce shows, that if it wasn't for those screens, every time the fight goes to the mat, I would see nothing. And I am always in good seats. Front row. I mean, but front row at Bellator is pretty far back. Front row at UFC is not so far back. But front row, second row with UFC most of the time. So. And I always spend large portions of the show watching the fight on the screens as opposed to watching it live. So
it does not matter what promotion you are, AEW, WWE. If there's a screen there, you've got to show the wrestling on the screen.
It's counterproductive not to.
It's not a distraction. I know that WWE thinks it's a distraction. That's why they wouldn't put the show on the Titantron at the Tacoma Dome. But if there are no screens in the building, and you're doing a chain link cage match, and nobody can see a damn thing that's happening inside that cage, you've got to put it on the Titantron. Like, I know there are enough cameras, there's a hard cam, you can shoot the action without showing that it's actually airing on the Titantron, but you have to show the people what's going on.
I completely agree.
Person here says, any idea on Hirai Kawado coming back from the CMLL excursion? I think we asked that a couple of days ago, but...
As far as when he's done, comes back, do not know. But he's just won the, the Super Lightweight Championship in a tournament there.
And finally, this person says, Dave mentioned on Twitter the MSG riot in 1957. Could he go into more detail about what caused it, and has anything like it happened since?
Okay. Whatever it was... the heels, which in this case would have been, was it Jerry Graham, and was there somebody from French Canada? Jerry Graham teamed with somebody, and it was against Rocca and Carpentier. So what else do they want to know?
Just if anything like this has happened since.
I mean, there have been riots, but not to that degree, no. But they took a lot of security measures in the Garden, where I think the guys would be out to jail pretty quick if they were to violate them. And they've all been told that.
All right, everybody, we are out of time. Dave and I will be back tomorrow after the Raw show, and we'll talk all of the news, do more mailbag, all that good stuff. Check out the front page. Got a lot of stuff up there, and that is it. We will talk to you again after a while.